The cafeteria at Galactic Academy thrummed with a peculiar sort of order. Thousands of species from across the galaxy gathered daily to eat, somehow managing not to start wars over food preferences, cultural boundaries, or territorial pride. The air was thick with scents, languages, and subtle social maneuvers. Zarvexith, known to most simply as Zara, had long since perfected the art of timing her lunch arrival. She would wait until the majority of students had already chosen their seats, leaving fewer opportunities for anyone to wander over and then recoil once they caught her scent. Her path, deliberate and unhurried, always ended at the same corner table, her territory by default, tucked beneath the atmospheric recycling vents. The steady airflow diluted her natural pheromones enough to make sitting nearby more bearable, though most students still avoided the area altogether. That isolation provided her with a measure of peace.
No awkward stares. No whispered complaints.
Yet the price of that quiet was painfully obvious to anyone paying attention. The lone Talashan student dining apart from the Academy's colorful mix of cliques and study groups. Zara had long ago learned to shrink into herself, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone determined to leave as little impression as possible. Her body betrayed her difference in ways she could not disguise. The faint shimmer of her scaled skin reflected cafeteria lights like refracted sunlight underwater. Her elongated ears twitched unconsciously, filtering out the roar of conversations in more than a dozen tongues. And always there was her scent. Oceanic, humid, tinged with minerals. The inescapable trace of her species. Humans could no more stop breathing than she could prevent her pheromones from announcing her presence. She had tried. The Academy's medical staff had cycled her through sprays that suffocated her, diets that left her sick, and meditative techniques meant to trick her body into producing less chemical signal. Each failed in its own way. A few hours of relief never justified the nausea, the exhaustion, or the sense that she was cutting away pieces of herself to accommodate others' discomfort. She had just settled into her solitary meal, kelp-based rations and mineral-rich supplements that kept her tethered to memories of Theosos Prime, when a voice broke her routine. "Excuse me, is this seat free?" Startled, Zara glanced up. Standing beside the empty chair opposite her was a human. He was tall, even by human standards, with dark hair and an open smile that could have been either disarming friendliness or sheer obliviousness to the cafeteria's invisible social map. "The seat is available," Zara replied cautiously, "but you may find conditions here less comfortable. The air circulation carries my chemical signature more strongly in this area." Unbothered, the human set his tray down and took the seat anyway, his movements casual, confident. "Then I'll consider myself warned. I'm Marcus Thompson, exchange student from Earth's Pacific colonies. And you're right, there's definitely a smell here, like warm rain on ocean waves." Zara blinked, her senses catching subtle undertones in his voice, something she hadn't heard in months. "Acceptance. You find the scent pleasant?" she asked, wary. "Of course," Marcus answered between bites of his lunch. "I grew up on floating cities above the Pacific. Salt air, fish markets, plankton blooms, it was normal. Honestly, this cafeteria usually reeks of recycled air and overprocessed nutrients. Over here, though, at least it smells alive." The word caught her off guard. Alive. Most students used words like stale, overpowering, rotten. "Character," Marcus added, smiling again. "That's what your scent gives this place, character." Zara repeated the word softly, as if testing a foreign phrase. Character. A far cry from contamination factors and incompatible signatures. The cold labels she heard from staff. "You do not consider it overwhelming? Disagreeable?" she pressed. Marcus shook his head. "Not at all. Look, chemical communication is one of the most sophisticated evolutionary tools, especially in aquatic environments. Just because most species can't interpret your signals doesn't mean they're pollution. It just means they're limited." Something shifted deep within her at those words, like tectonic plates grinding into a new alignment. "You understand chemical communication?" "I understand enough to know it's meaningful," Marcus said. "Ocean ecosystems train you to notice, sense carry messages. Storms coming, coral spawning, danger nearby. And I've studied a bit of xenobiology, too. Talashan pheromones aren't just smells. They're language. They broadcast emotions, health, even abstract ideas. Most people can't read them, so they write them off as noise. You've studied my species? Marcus shrugged modestly. I study lots of things, but mostly, I pay attention when I see someone being treated unfairly for something they can't change. Zara studied him in return, uncertain. You chose to sit here. Deliberately. Yep, Marcus said with unshakable ease. Because you looked like someone worth talking to. And because this table has the best acoustics in the whole cafeteria. He gestured around with boyish enthusiasm. Perfect for real conversation. Also, I'm homesick. Thought maybe we'd have that in common. That word, homesick, struck something in Zara. For the first time since leaving her oceanic world, she felt the stirrings of a genuine smile. 3 weeks into their growing friendship, Zara realized Marcus Thompson was unlike anyone she had ever met. He carried a blend of sharp curiosity and a bold disregard for unspoken social boundaries. Some days, she wondered if he was simply naive. Other days, she suspected his confidence was rooted in something deeper, an understanding of himself that made him impervious to judgment. The latest evidence? His suggestion that they study together in the Academy's main library, a very public arena. Until now, their interactions had been confined to the cafeteria corner, their safe zone. Zara hesitated, her instincts warning her about the risks. Marcus, are you sure this is wise? She asked as they set their books down at a central table. The air circulation here is weaker. My pheromones will spread more intensely. Students will notice. Good, Marcus said cheerfully, laying out his xenobiology notes. Maybe then some of them will finally stop pretending your existence is a nuisance and actually learn something about chemical communication. Reluctantly, Zara activated her portable filtration unit, a device that dulled her emissions but always left her lungs aching. Before she could settle, Marcus leaned forward and switched it off. You don't need that, he said firmly. Your scent isn't pollution. It's part of who you are. Asking you to suppress it is like asking me to speak in monotone with no facial expression. It's unfair. But others, they can adapt, Marcus cut in. Zara, you've bent yourself into knots trying to make everyone else comfortable. Maybe it's time they adjusted for once. As if on cue, a group of Alarian students approached, their bluish skin flickering with irritation. Excuse us, one said carefully, but your chemical presence is interfering with our ability to focus. Zara instinctively reached for her books, ready to flee. I'll move. No, Marcus interrupted, his voice calm but unyielding. Zara was here first. She has just as much right to this space as anyone. If you're uncomfortable, there are private study rooms upstairs. The Alarians exchanged uneasy glances. We didn't mean offense. It's only that Talashan signatures can be overwhelming. And Alarian electromagnetic pulses give half a dozen species migraines, Marcus replied smoothly. Yet we don't ask you to muzzle your biology. Every species has traits that make coexistence complicated. That's what accommodation is for. The Alarians withdrew, unsettled but not hostile. Zara stared at Marcus, astonishment flickering across her features. You defended my right to sit here. I defended your right to exist, Marcus corrected. His tone softened. Zara, you belong here. The problem isn't your pheromones. It's everyone else's failure to understand them. Opening his textbook, he pointed to a highlighted passage. See? Talashan signals transmit emotional states, health markers, even social connections. Other species smell only fish, but they're missing an entire language. Zara leaned over, her heart thudding. You've studied this seriously. I wanted to know why someone as intelligent as you was being pushed into the shadows, Marcus said. And the truth is, the problem isn't you. It's the Academy's blind spot. For the first time in months, Zara felt something besides shame coil in her chest. Hope. Marcus wasn't just tolerating her presence. He valued it. When their study session ended, She whispered, "Thank you for making me believe that difference isn't defect." Marcus smiled, his warmth genuine. "And thank you for proving the most interesting people are usually the ones who don't fit categories." The summons arrived without warning during Zara's advanced biochemistry class. A sleek administrative drone delivered the message with chilling formality. "Report to Dr. Kellner's office immediately regarding interspecies interaction protocols." Her stomach tightened. Waiting outside the department head's office, she spotted Marcus already there, his jaw set in quiet defiance. "They called you too?" she asked, though the tension in his shoulders answered for him. "Called, grilled, and now they want me evaluated," Marcus replied grimly. "Apparently, some students think my friendship with you is proof that your pheromones are warping my judgment. Because obviously, a human couldn't choose to be your friend without biochemical brainwashing." Before Zara could respond, the office door slid open. Dr. Kellner stood there, sharp-eyed and clinical. "Ms. Vexith, Mr. Thompson, enter." The two sat across from his imposing desk, feeling more like defendants than students. "We've received concerns," Kellner began, activating a holographic display of Talashan pheromone structures. "Specifically, whether your association reflects genuine social interaction or manipulation." Zara tried to steady her breathing, suppressing her chemical emissions as best she could. "Concerns?" she repeated softly. "Your species' signatures appear to trigger unusual patterns in Mr. Thompson's behavior," Kellner said. "His responses do not align with typical human reactions." "Typical humans who grew up far from oceans," Marcus interjected. "My background is different. I recognize these chemical cues. That doesn't mean I'm being manipulated. It means I'm compatible." Kellner ignored him, pulling up neural scans. Marcus's scans. Zara's chest constricted. "Note the elevated activity in his emotional and decision-making centers during your interactions. Such spikes suggest artificial influence." "That's called friendship," Marcus snapped. "Of course my brain lights up when I'm around someone I care about. What you're showing isn't proof of manipulation. It's proof of connection." Kellner's gaze narrowed. "Ms. Vexith, how do you explain his tolerance when other humans exhibit avoidance?" "I don't explain it," Zara whispered. "I only know I'm grateful." "Gratitude itself may be evidence of conditioning," Kellner said coldly. "Talashan pheromones evolved to strengthen group bonds. It's possible your emissions are forcing bonds where they shouldn't exist." Marcus leaned forward, barely restraining his anger. "So, let me get this straight. If my friendship with Zara makes me happier, smarter, and more engaged, you call it corruption. But if her presence made me miserable, then she'd be acceptable." Kellner folded his hands. "The Academy's duty is to maintain fairness. We can offer a solution voluntary suppression treatment. A simple procedure to reduce Ms. Vexith's emissions, allowing her to remain without affecting others." The words struck Zara like ice water. Suppress her chemical identity? Strip away the essence of her people's communication? "And if she refuses?" Marcus asked, his voice low. "Then protocols would be enacted to ensure her presence doesn't interfere with others," Kellner said. "Which may include social isolation." Zara's chest tightened. Suppression meant erasing a part of herself. Refusal meant exile. "Dr. Kellner," she asked quietly, "how long do I have to decide?" "A week," he answered. "But understand, continuing without suppression may also jeopardize Mr. Thompson's academic standing if his judgment is deemed compromised." Zara's pheromones shifted involuntarily, releasing signals of fear and anger. Marcus caught the scent immediately, his expression hardening. As they left the office, Zara's steps quickened, her thoughts racing. "Marcus, what if they're right? What if your bond with me isn't real, just chemistry?" "Then every friendship is chemistry," Marcus replied fiercely. "Every smile, every laugh, every touch. Friendship is influence. That's what makes it real. The problem isn't you, Zara. It's a system that calls diversity contamination." She stopped, looking at him fully. You truly believe suppressing my scent would change who I am? I believe it would erase part of you, Marcus said steadily. And I'd rather fight beside the real you than watch you cut pieces of yourself away to make others comfortable. For the first time, Zara let herself believe he meant every word. 3 days later, Zara stood before the Academy's disciplinary board, her pheromones betraying the nervous storm within. Marcus stood beside her, his posture confident, though she could feel his tension. This was no casual debate, it was a trial of her identity. Board members, Dr. Kellner began, we are here to determine whether Ms. Vexitha's natural emissions constitute manipulation of human decision-making, and if suppression treatment is required. Marcus stepped forward, activating his holographic display with calm determination. With respect, sir, this is more than a disciplinary issue. It's a scientific misunderstanding. He projected comparative data across dozens of species. Humans aren't reacting abnormally to Talashan pheromones. We're reacting naturally. Our evolutionary history, our coastal and aquatic roots, made us particularly suited to interpret complex marine chemical cues. These emissions aren't manipulation. They're communication. Dr. Yass, one of the board members, leaned forward with interest. You're saying this is compatibility, not coercion? I'm showing it, Marcus corrected, shifting the display to brain scans of multiple human students. Note the contrast. Terrestrial-born humans experience Zara's presence as overwhelming, but those raised in aquatic environments, like myself, register her pheromones as interpretable data, not sensory stress. The data was undeniable. Neural patterns in ocean-raised humans showed information processing rather than panic responses. Marcus continued, and further analysis reveals these pheromones contain molecular structures identical to compounds in Earth's marine ecosystems. To some of us, Zara's presence is not foreign, it's familiar. A murmur spread across the board. Even Kellner looked unsettled, his certainty eroding. Zara finally spoke, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. Board members, Talashan communication is no more manipulation than human facial expressions. When I'm anxious, my chemical signals reveal that state. When I'm content, they change. Mr. Thompson's comfort in my presence isn't evidence of coercion. It's evidence that he can understand. Dr. Chin raised a brow. And suppression treatment? Wouldn't it resolve these conflicts? Suppression, Zara answered firmly, would erase part of my cultural identity. Asking me to alter my biology for others' comfort is like asking a human to speak without tone, without expression, without inflection. Possible, but at the cost of authenticity. Marcus closed his presentation with data from the past month. Since Zara and I began working together publicly, interspecies cooperation among other students has increased. 7 have approached us with questions, 3 joined our study group, and cross-species project outcomes have measurably improved. Her presence enhances this Academy's mission, not hinders it. The board recessed for deliberation. Zara and Marcus waited in silence outside, her pheromones flickering between anxiety and hope. Marcus leaned close. Whatever they decide, remember this, you don't need suppression to prove your worth. You already have. When they were finally called back in, Dr. Yass delivered the verdict. After reviewing the evidence, the board concludes that Talashan pheromone communication represents a natural interspecies channel, not manipulation. Suppression treatment will remain optional, never mandatory. Furthermore, Academy policy will be revised to recognize such communication as an educational opportunity. Relief washed through Zara, her pheromones radiating gratitude. 6 months later, she sat at lunch surrounded by students from 7 species. Her natural scent no longer a stigma but a bridge. The once isolated corner table had become the famed chemical communication table, where dialogue thrived. Marcus, as always, sat across from her. Any regrets about refusing suppression? He asked with a grin. Only that I spent so long thinking I was broken, Zara replied softly. When all along the problem wasn't me. It was a world too narrow to understand me. She glanced around at her new circle of friends, then back at Marcus, whose faith had sparked it all. Now I know being different isn't weakness. It's a gift. And the right people don't just accept it. They help you see it as your strength. Marcus smiled warmly. And best of all, you'll never eat lunch alone again. Zara returned his smile, her pheromones radiating joy into the air like sunlight on the ocean.
No.
Not ever again.